Now, my next guest is a very important person. She's a VIP because they know the Tooth Fairy. I know, I'm absolutely starstruck. Claire McLennan is the Tooth Fairy Liaison Officer and joins me right now ahead of International Tooth Fairy Day on Sunday. Claire, welcome to the show. I'm in absolute awe.
Good morning. Happy Friday to you.
Oh, well, it's lovely to have you on. It really, I mean, you're kind of like the Queen, almost, really, because you know the Tooth Fairy. You get to hang out with the Tooth Fairy. But, I guess when you were growing up, you never knew that, this would be something that you were chosen to do. But when you were a little girl and you had your baby teeth, your milk teeth, do you remember the Tooth Fairy visiting you and leaving you something nice and shiny?
I do. Yes, absolutely. I do. I think it's one of those moments, isn't it, when you're a child, which becomes so magical as part of your growing up. And I recently remember having the conversations with my parents actually about how the Tooth Fairy came and left the magical shiny coin under the pillow. And I'm a parent now as well. And although my son is only 4, I'm very much looking forward to the time when he loses his first tooth, so that magic can be created all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's the Tooth Fairy like? And I mean, she must be very, I'm assuming it's a she, but I mean, the Tooth Fairy must be very excited ahead of Sunday and International Tooth Fairy Day. But how does the Tooth Fairy feel about it all?
Very, very excited. Yeah, International Tooth Fairy Day on Sunday, and it's a day of celebration,
Hmm.
and all over the world, children are losing teeth every single day, which keeps her very, very busy, and that and. Even in lockdown, there's still children losing teeth and coins being put under pillows to create that magic. And it's really clear that children need a bit of magic and sparkle in their lives right now. And putting a coin under the pillow from the Tooth Fairy helps them do that.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a queue of teeth actually, and the Tooth Fairy certainly knows where we live. That's for absolute sure. But my daughter Betsy, who's 8 years old, she said, "Mummy, what does the Tooth Fairy look like?" And I really don't know. I mean, you know her personally, so you can best describe the Tooth Fairy for us.
Yeah, so the Tooth Fairy is very brave. The Tooth Fairy enjoys traveling, and enjoys all of the journeys across the world. And I think the real heart of what the Tooth Fairy is about surprise, excitement, and really bringing magic. So all of those things combined, yes, I am very, very proud to be the Tooth Fairy liaison officer at the Royal Mint.
Yeah, and what's the going rate for the Tooth Fairy on average?
So we did some research actually, and on average, a child receives £9.05 over the last year.
Get
When the Tooth Fairy,
away.
yeah.
That's
So when the Tooth Fairy,
amazing.
yeah, and if you think about that in the UK alone, that's 40 million that children have received during lockdown. So not only has the Tooth Fairy been very, very busy, but parents and grandparents are really enjoying marking that milestone when the first tooth is lost, and the Royal Mint can help do that by providing the coins to the Tooth Fairy to leave them under the pillow.
What does the Tooth Fairy leave in your house?
So my son is only 4,
Oh,
so we
4 years
haven't,
old. Yeah.
yeah, so we haven't had the magic as yet. But I get to see lots of letters, and lots of conversations around how happy, this tradition still makes children feel.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned actually that you work at the Royal Mint. How are you celebrating International Tooth Fairy Day?
Yeah, so we'll be celebrating by making lots of coins. So a lot of people won't know that the Royal Mint make coins not only for the UK but also lots of countries across the world. So we'll be celebrating by making lots of coins, but also putting all of those in little pouches for the Tooth Fairy to deliver on
Mm.
International Tooth Fairy Day.
Could you please get a message to the Tooth Fairy from Betsy and my household, because we've had a couple of instances where a tooth, of course, has been lost, and Betsy's been carrying it around, and she lost one in some grass, and we did all that we could to find it. and yet still the Tooth Fairy knew that she'd lost a tooth and still left her some money, even though there was no tooth to take. There was also another incident recently where the tooth was lost in the house, and we think one of our dogs may have eaten the tooth. But still, the Tooth Fairy, of course, left some money for Betsy. So we just would like to pass on our thanks. We really would.
I'll do that. I'll do that. And she has the magic to know. So yes, I'll pass on the message.
Thank you very much indeed. And you said that actually the Tooth Fairy gets lots of letters. I mean, if somebody wants to write to the Tooth Fairy to thank them, how do they do that? Do they just put the Tooth Fairy on the envelope? How does it get to the Tooth Fairy?
Yeah, so in the digital age, if you go to royalmint.com, you can see lots of information on there about the Tooth Fairy, including books, but also there's a area where a child has got activity things to do and also can write letters. So yeah, so go on and have a look.
Wonderful. We will do. Thank you very much indeed, Claire. It's been an absolute honour. It really has
Thank
to
you.
have you on, and give our regards to the Tooth Fairy. Thank you.